Hello and good Monday, August 9th. I'm Molly. This is the International Day of the World's Indigenous People, marking the first meeting in 1982 of the United Nations Working Group of Indigenous Populations of the Subcommission on Prevention of Discrimination and Protection of Minorities of the Commission on Human Rights for the preservation and investigation of specialized Indigenous knowledge, particularly in relation to the resources of the natural environment with which a society is associated, to be distinguished from the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, initiated in 1990 in Tartu, Estonia, and formed on the 11th of February 1991 in The Hague, whose members are political organizations and governments representing indigenous peoples, as well as occupied nations, minorities, and independent states and territories, which lack representation internationally. And this is Rocketboom. In sports, Isao Hashimoto's 1945 to 1998 details over 2,000 20th century nuclear explosions mapped out in an Atari 2600-esque animated game sequence. Funny and breathtaking, all at once. Feds bust apparent illegal lemon trade. Multnomah County, Oregon investor Gators shut down an unlicensed beverage dispensary in Portland last week for failing to acquire a temporary business license, causing 7-year-old Julie Murphy, owner of the now defunct lemonade stand, to cry. Uneasy with how his own officials were perceived to be big meanies, County Chairman Jeff Kogan called Julie's mother and clarified that the rules are meant for professional vendors, but the kids should be free to operate lemonade stands just as they have for generations. Meanwhile, according to a report by the Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction, the Department of Defense is unable to account for $8.7 billion of the $9.1 billion Americans spent on reconstruction in Iraq, money that was supposed to be allotted for humanitarian needs of the Iraqi people, economic reconstruction, and repair of Iraq's infrastructure, disarmament, the Iraqi civilian administration, and other support for the people of Iraq. So what happened to the 8.7 out of $9.1 billion? Quoth the bookkeeper, "While we were able to achieve the objective of our audit, our work was limited by a lack of records maintained by the DoD organizations that received DFI funds. Additionally, we were unable to locate personnel with knowledge of DFI activities in the 2003 to 2005 timeframe when the largest part of the DFI contracting activities occurred." And does it really matter, considering the US has spent about $1 trillion on the Afghanistan and Iraq conflicts so far? Tell me, what would you do with $1 trillion instead of put holes in the ground and kill people? Make it a video response and we'll send him to the president. But I digress. It's an interesting situation because you have a bit of a grey area here. On one hand, of course it's no big deal for a little kid to sell lemonade on the corner. There is something obvious about the idea when it strikes a young entrepreneur, and selling lemonade on the street leads to all kinds of positive experiences. But where do you draw the line? At some point, this kid could wind up selling grilled cheese sandwiches out of his basement, and before you know it, he's not washing his hands before getting back to the quote, gourmet truck that everyone else is calling street meat. Would you buy a glass of lemonade from a little kid on the street? How about a rocket?